You want to know a secret? I think about the topic of this YouTube video every day. It is the thing I'm closest to an expert on, and if you're going to listen to me about anything, it should probably be this. This video is for everyone who is an introvert, who struggles to make friends, who is quiet, shy, and doesn't have a lot of luck with the opposite sex. The one thing I would tell you is that that is not who you are. You do not have to stay that way. You can become a social butterfly. And in this video, I'm going to show you how. I used to be such an introvert that there was probably only 5 people that I would actually talk to one-on-one. Everyone else, I found it more enjoyable to just sit in silence. I just would not get to know anyone, and it meant that I basically made no friends. It got to the point where in my second friend group in high school, after about maybe 4 months of being there, one guy was like, "Hey Ivor, what does your voice sound like?" And at that point I knew, damn, things need to change. And I started working on my social skills. I knew that I didn't always want to be like this, and I think a lot of you can relate to that. But basically, I got to the point where now I have more social hangouts in the last 6 months than I did in all of high school. So I've gotten a bit better. I've still got a long way to go, but I've gotten better. So that is basically to show you that you can improve. And I'm sure you've heard a ton of stories like this. So that story probably doesn't mean much, which is why I kind of wanted to get it out quickly. What I want to say though is that you might be thinking that this story just doesn't apply to you. Maybe it like somewhat applies, but you just couldn't get that extent of a transformation as me, or I'm sure you've heard other stories. And maybe you think that that's because it's just too hard. Maybe you think you're not capable. Whatever the reason is, I don't really know. For some reason, you think you can't do it. And I'm here to tell you that you can. If you don't try, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You'll never improve. And if you do try, maybe it'll work. I don't know for sure that it will work. Maybe you actually just can't improve, but I think it's very unlikely. And even if you don't get the amount of improvement some other people will, you'll get some level of improvement. And for something as important as making friends, finding like the love of your life, I think this is something that's worth putting effort into. Just me. So back when I thought I couldn't change, basically the reason behind it was I was an introvert, and definition of that, if you don't know, is you get drained by social things. Like your energy just goes down instead of up. And I was attaching all these other things to my identity of being an introvert. So I was like, not only am I an introvert, I'm quiet. I'm not very funny. I'm not good at flirting with girls or anything. I don't have a lot of friends. I have a very close circle. In fact, I have no circle, but I told myself I had a close circle. And basically, I'm attaching all these things which aren't actually my identity. The only thing that I can't change is that I'm an introvert. All these other things, being quiet, not having friends, are very changeable. And this is where we come to a distinction that I want to make. So your behavior is basically like, what you're acting like. Like if you're a quiet guy, that is your behavior. It can be broken into 2 aspects. There is your skills, and there is your natural inclinations. So natural inclinations are things like being an introvert. They're not really going to change over the entire duration of your lifetime. And then there's skills, which is things that you can change. They might be hard to improve, but you can improve them. When it comes to natural inclinations, I think you should always view them as not being bad. If you are like short, for example, and you are really insecure about that, and you're constantly like, you have like the fat wedges in your shoes and you're just walking around like you're some tall guy, people are not going to like you that much. Whereas if you're short, but you're just like, you know what, it's okay, I'm going to be confident anyway, and you're just a very happy, confident guy, people are going to like that a lot more. So just be happy with what you got. It's actually not that bad. Like there's probably other people who have exactly what you've got. When it comes to skills, these are the things you can decide to work on if you're not very good at. Natural inclinations, if you've got something you don't like, what you should do is accept it. If you have a skill that you don't like or you're not very good at, you work on it. So it's kind of a distinction there. So some examples. When it comes to humor, the type of things you find funny is a natural inclination. If you always like a certain type of joke, I don't know, I can't think of any examples, that's a natural inclination. But the way you tell jokes, if you're like a really good like storyteller, you tell a really good build up and then you make everyone laugh, that is a skill. So if you say, I'm not very funny, I would say that you're actually just not very skilled, but you are funny. At least some people will find you funny. This applies to like conversational skills as well. You have some natural inclinations, like being an introvert. You don't really like talking to people. But that doesn't mean that you can't have really good skills and then actually be really good at talking to people and be a social butterfly. That guy is just magnetic, who everyone is just like, wow, you can be that guy no matter what your natural inclination is, because it is a skill. So now that we've made that distinction that basically you should accept your natural inclinations like being an introvert, and you should work on your skills if that's something you decide you want to do. Now, how do we actually work on those skills? I've worked on mine and I've improved, so I think I can give some advice, but take this with a grain of salt. There's a lot of other good stuff out there. So the biggest thing I would say is any skill is just built by practice. The more you practice, the better you'll get. And specifically, you have to do the hard practice. If I'm a sprinter and I'm trying to get faster at running, I don't get better at that by jogging. Maybe some of the time I'd go for jogs, but some of the time, at least, I have to sprint full out, and that is hard. I have to do those hard sessions. And when it comes to any other skill like socializing, you have to do those hard things. So a good rule of thumb is if something is hard, you should probably do it. And that will lead to improved skills. Some examples. If you want to go and talk to someone, but you're like, I'm scared. That's a hard thing. That is something that's going to improve your skills, and therefore you should do it. Also, anything hard generally is hard because it's bad in the short term, but good in the long term. Whereas easy things are good in the short term, bad in the long term. So just remember that. Another great example of like how you can work on your skills is to go out and do stuff more. If you're like thinking, I should probably go to this like school event after school, like a game, a sports game, whatever it is, who knows, like book club, whatever, you're probably reluctant to do it. It's another one of those hard things. But it's just that time spent socializing and using those skills that will allow you to develop them, particularly if it's something hard, something kind of out of your comfort zone. Another thing is, if a sprinter is trying to get faster at running, they don't do that by watching YouTube videos. They do watch some YouTube videos, so don't click off, okay? They do have to watch videos to get the technique right and stuff. I say this because I'm a sprinter, by the way. That's why I'm picking sprinting. But when it comes to socializing, it's the same. You have to watch some YouTube videos, but you can't just only sit there just watching YouTube videos all day. You're not going to get better. You have to do that hard practice. And this is hard. I'm not going to say it's easy and you can always do it. I can't always do this. Like sometimes that hard stuff, I like chicken out. So it's not easy. But you do have to do it some of the time. If you chicken out 9 out of 10 times, but do that one time, that is still better than doing nothing. And a good way to do this is to set really easy goals. So then you're actually committed to practicing. If you say with a diet, I'm not going to eat anything other than potatoes for a year, you're going to fail pretty quick. But if you say, I'm just going to not eat like, I don't know, lollies for a week, that's a lot easier and you're actually going to achieve it. And that's better than just failing straight away and then being back to nothing, right? You've got to be realistic. And I've tried a couple different things. I've tried like daily streaks. I've tried like a progress meter that goes down and you have to keep filling it up by doing social stuff. And I found that both of those kind of worked, but what works best for me is actually just posting every week on TikTok. So I make a TikTok video basically explaining like, this is my journey of making friends and like getting a girlfriend and stuff, whatever it is you're working on specifically, probably everything. And I say like what I did that week. So I invited this guy out, I hung out, I like went up and talked to this girl, all that kind of thing. And if you do it once a week and you go a whole week without doing anything, you're going to be like, oh no, I don't have anything for the TikTok. And so that's going to encourage you to do stuff. Also, if you actually have a good week, you'll get a lot of comments and likes and stuff. At least I found like even on my worst videos, I was getting like at least six comments. So I think you can be guaranteed at least a couple comments. And that's going to be really encouraging for you. So I found that to be the best way to get encouragement. So that is kind of the general overview of how I would go about improving skills. Now, I was talking about watching some of those videos to improve your technique. I made one of those. It's on how to talk for hours in conversations. You can check that out here.